This is one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek ever. The Enterprise is called to the Romulan neutral zone to investigate the loss of contact from some of the Federation outposts there, and Kirk finds himself face to face with his Romulan counterpart. And the two master tacticians square off in an external conflict, while the Enterprise finds itself with an internal one as well. Two ships enter, but only one will make it home in Balance of Terror. Hit it.
Hey!
So this episode has two major Star Trek milestones in it. First, this is the first time ever we're seeing the Romulans, one of two major adversaries to the Federation to come out of the original series. They were entirely the creation of episode writer Paul Schneider. And two, let's give a huge watching stuff welcome to Star Trek legend Mark Lenard as the Romulan Commander, a role he called one of the best roles he had ever had on television. He comes back later as both a Vulcan and a Klingon. What? You mean some of yous didn't know the Klingon captain from Star Trek the Motion Picture was our boy here? You're Googling it right now, ain't you? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll wait. There, see? You gotta trust me. Possum is good, Possum is wise. But enough of this jibber-jabber. Let's dive into the plot. We open on a wedding happening on the ship. The costume department ain't come up with dress uniforms yet, so it's more of a business casual thing. But before these two crazy kids can tie the knot, there's a red alert. Earth Outpost 4 along the Romulan neutral zone is under attack, and we gotta go. On the way, Spock dumps some exposition on the crew that there are a number of Earth outposts along an area of space called the neutral zone, which was established by treaty at the end of the Earth-Romulan War over 100 years ago. That treaty was negotiated and signed entirely over audio only, no video, so humans and Romulans still have no idea what the other one looks like. But from what we know from the war, Romulans are ruthless and warlike. Kirk adds that Starfleet's orders are that the Enterprise investigates the situation, but under no circumstances can they enter the Romulan neutral zone. They can defend themselves, but that's it. To keep the peace, the Enterprise is to be considered expendable. Our guest navigator this week is Lieutenant Stiles, who says hitting these outposts totally sounds like Romulans. Kirk wonders how they're even going to be able to tell since they ain't seen a Romulan ship in 100 years. But Stiles says they paint birds of prey on their ships. Kirk's like, what are you, some kind of historian? Stiles said he had a lot of family get killed in that war. Kirk reminds him, though, that was their war, not his. So, chill the out, all right? Outpost 4 calls up the Enterprise and says, hey, this ship showed up, shot a ball of plasma right up my ass, and look at this place. You see this? Kirk goes, who did that? The guy's like, I don't know, they blasted my crib and they disappeared. I don't mean they left, I mean they literally dis-a-friggin-peared. Boom, gone. Also, Outposts 2, 4, and 8 are already blown up, so, can you come get me? Kirk's like, we're on our way, but we're too far out. Dude's like, never mind, they're back. Well, the ship lets out another plasma ball, and they watch as the ship disappears right in front of them, and then Outpost 4 is destroyed. That plasma ain't no joke. Spock scans the area and can sense a moving object, but they don't see nothing on the screen. Spock says the ship may be bending light, which is possible, but it takes a lot of power. It seems to be heading to the neutral zone, which pretty much clinches the fact that it's a Romulan ship, but he says they're being kind of leisurely about it, which may mean that they can't see the Enterprise either while the invisibility shield is on. Kirk orders a parallel course so that they'll look like a sensor echo to the Romulans. While this is happening, Uhura picks up a signal and it sounds like it's coming from the Romulans. Spock rides the signal into the Romulan ship and is able to do a Airbnb spy camera thing and see the bridge of their ship. The Romulan commander turns around, and what do you know? They look just like Vulcans. Even Spock is caught off guard at that. But the winner for the stankiest eye goes to Styles. Uhura starts trying to decode the signal, and Styles is like, give it to Spock. Kirk says, you better be saying Spock is good at decoding stuff because I'd hate to think one of my bridge officers is a racist piece of shit, right? Right? Well, meanwhile, over on the Romulan ship, the commander ain't so sure that that other dot on their sensor screen is a reflection. Oh, and that dude that sent the signal? The commander busts his ass. Don't you know they could have used that signal to Airbnb spy camera us, you dingleberry? After that, he talks to his right-hand man, the Centurion, and talks about how even though their exploratory mission to test the Earth defenses has been successful, he knows that that means the Romulan leader, the Praetor, is going to want to go to war. The commander is sick of war and death, and he says he almost wishes they'd get blown up so that war don't happen. The Centurion looks at him weird, and he says, dude, I'm not going to blow us up, I'm just talking over here. And that seems to make him feel better. Back on the Enterprise, there's a briefing about what they should do about all this. Spock's got a piece of Outpost 4, and the Romulan weapon basically turned it into a chunk of Possum Grandma's peanut brittle. Like I said, that plasma ain't no joke. Scotty says maybe so, but their engines suck. We got 'em beat there. After doing a racism at Spock, Styles says attack, which surprises nobody. Spock agrees, which surprises everybody. He says that Vulcans went through their aggressive militaristic phase back in the day and calls it brutal even by Earth standards. Ouch. But he says that if these guys are an offshoot of Vulcans and they never emerge from that period, then showing weakness will guarantee attack and probably war. So they need to fight a little now to prevent a lot of fighting later on. Kirk calls battle stations, and here we go. The Romulan ship heads for the tail of a comet, hoping that the particles in the tail will screw up the Enterprise's sensors and they can shake them. Kirk has another plan. Once the Romulan ship is in the tail, they'll break off and swing around to the other side and pop them as they're coming out, taking advantage of their superior speed like Scotty was talking about. As the Romulan ship emerges, though, the commander sees that the Enterprise ain't following them no more, figures out what's going on, and reverses course, screwing up Kirk's plan. And both commanders go, oof. This guy is good. Kirk orders to fire phasers set on proximity blast at where the Romulan ship should be, and the Romulans get busted up pretty good. The Centurion pushes the commander out of the way of some falling debris and gets clobbered himself. The barrage burns out the Enterprise's phaser circuits, though, and Spock's got to repair them before they can continue to fight. Just then, the Romulan ship appears and lets fly with one of them plasma balls, then disappears again. Sulu slams it in reverse and floors it. The plasma ball chases them, but they see that it's getting weaker as they go, like it's dissipating. By the time it hits, though, there's still plenty of punch in the thing, and the Enterprise gets its bell rung pretty good. Kirk returns fire and decides, orders or no orders, they're chasing after the Romulans into the neutral zone. The Romulan commander orders debris put into the disposal tubes, as well as the body of his buddy who just died from the ship falling on him, and Spock sees the debris and the dude, but does the math, and it ain't enough to be the enemy ship. But he's got nothing else on his scope. They've lost him. Well, the Enterprise shuts down all non-essential systems to avoid detection by the cloaked Romulan ship, and they sit, waiting, watching, and repairing their phases. Kirk's chilling out in his room trying to get some rest, and McCoy shows up to see how he's doing. Kirk says he's been thinking about how everybody's looking at him to make the right decision, and what if he screws up? McCoy says, dude, you're gonna go cuckoo thinking like that. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's basically the gist. Later on the bridge, as he's finishing up repairing the phaser circuits, Spock accidentally turns some stuff on, and the gig is up. Kirk orders the Enterprise back to full power right as the Romulans, seeing the power spike, are moving in for the kill. Kirk gets there first, though, and hits the Romulans hard. The Romulan commander pulls the old put crap in the disposal tubes trick again, but this time, instead of a dead old guy, he puts in a nuke. Spock sees it, and Kirk orders the ship to come about and fires on the nuke, detonating it, and really goofing the Enterprise up. While they're trying to collect their bearings, the Romulan commander decides to head home, not trusting that the Enterprise ain't setting another trap for him. Scotty says phasers are still operational, but there's only one guy in the phaser control room, Tomlinson. that guy who was getting married at the beginning of the episode. Remember him? Well, Styles says he used to do that job, so he joins Tomlinson in the phaser room. On a Romulan ship, that doofus, what sent the signal, is shooting his mouth off about how their duty is to crush the Praetor's enemies and all this, and the commander's all, okay, I'll attack. Jeez, what's the matter with you? Spock checks on Styles and Tomlinson to make sure they got all they need, and Styles does a big racism at Spock, who goes, whatever, and leaves. Just then, the phaser coolant system springs a leak, and the fumes knock out Styles and Tomlinson. Right then, the Romulan ship attacks, and the bridge can't get the phasers to fire because those guys are out cold. They call over the intercom asking what's wrong, and hearing this, Spock runs back into the phaser room. He sees the situation, fires the phasers, and then grabs Styles and pulls him out of the fumes. He ain't able to get Tomlinson, though. Well, it ain't like we all didn't know at least one of the wedding people was going to end up whacked, right? Spock's phaser barrage permanently cripples the Romulan ship, and Kirk hails them, calling for their surrender. The Romulan commander says that ain't how they do things, but that he wishes they could have met under better circumstances. He thinks they could have been buddies. Then he blows himself up. Styles recovers in sickbay, eating a big kahuna burger of crow about all the crap he said about Spock. But Tomlinson's fiancée is down in the chapel mourning her boy. Kirk goes in, says, yeah, sucks, don't it? She gives him a hug and says she's going to be okay. Then it's back to work for Kirk, and we roll credits. Great stuff. Where to begin with the great stuff in this episode, huh? As usual, let's start with some great lines.
There was a Captain Styles in the Space Service then. 2 commanders, several junior officers. All lost in that war, sir.
Their war, Mr. Styles. Not yours. Don't forget it.
Yes, sir.
Well, here's one thing you can be sure of, mister. Leave any bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for it on the bridge. Do I make myself clear?
You do, sir.
Got a twofer here of Kirk explaining to Styles that he needs to separate himself from these past grudges he's carrying around. Now, it's interesting that Kirk don't care if he's a bigot, he just don't want to see it demonstrated where other people can see it. I mean, he don't got time to explain how bigotry is stupid to this schmuck, he just needs him to cram it. Like, now.
Our gift to the homeland, another war.
If we are the strong, is this not the signal for war?
Must it always be so? How many comrades have we lost in this way?
Our portion, Commander, is obedience.
Obedience. Duty. Death and more death. Soon even enough for the Praetor's taste.
This is a great line and a great scene between these two. This isn't an evil enemy. They're just doing their jobs. Now, admittedly, they're blowing stuff up what's got people in it, and that's pretty bad. But for the most part, this episode depicts the Romulans as being very much human-like and not an evil archetype. We'll get more into that later.
And in all of the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And in all of that, and perhaps more, only one of each of us. Don't destroy the one named Kirk.
In a counterpoint to the scene between the commander and the Centurion, we get another great scene between Kirk and McCoy. I've talked a lot before about how much I love the relationship between Kirk and McCoy, about how Kirk is able to air his worries and uncertainties with McCoy in a way that he can't do with nobody else. So when we do get scenes like this, they're an opportunity to explore the character of Kirk in a unique way.
It is good we approach the neutral zone. Not too soon for me to see the stars of home.
I love the way the Romulans are written in this. Yeah, they're speaking English, even when the commander's talking to Kirk at the end. Remember, we don't know nothing about no universal translator yet. But their manner of speaking follows with the idea of them being Romans. Well, not actual Romans, but more of a Shakespearean, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears kind of Romans.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. No tears, tears for Caesar. Evil that men do lives after. The good is often interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar.
Okay, I couldn't resist. I had to put that in there. If you ain't seen the movie Free Enterprise and you're watching this show, and especially if you're Gen X, you gotta see that movie. It's probably gonna be right up your alley. If nothing else, you get to see the rest of that rap. Now, where was I? Oh, right. The Romulans are written with their own mode of speaking, and it really works. Especially with Mark Lenard and the other actors that got to play him. Honestly, I wish we had more scenes on the Romulan ship.
Never makes any sense. We both have to know that there was a reason.
I'm all right.
Hey, look at that. We got an epilogue here. A genuine denouement. We see some aftermath and consequences of the big story. We learn some lessons. We close things out nicely. I know some of you thought that the sudden end was a good way to close out Charlie X, and I don't disagree with that. But like I said in response to somebody in the comments of that episode, when you ain't done it at all so far, when it does happen to kind of work, it looks more like luck than a conscious artistic or narrative decision, you know? Here, though, we get to see Lieutenant Martine dealing with the death of her fiancé, and we get to see Kirk actually dealing with the death of one of his crew. Now, we've had people die on the show before, but this is the first time we see a real mourning as a result of a death, and how Kirk has to address it to the bereaved. And it's interesting how, when he leaves the chapel, you can see Kirk kind of putting away his emotions as he returns to duty along with the rest of the crew. This is all part of being in Starfleet. I do think that these two are a little chipper considering what everybody's just been through. But whatever, maybe they slept through it or something. The Goof. As you might expect, I don't got a lot of goof for this one. The main thing is honestly this. How does this guy still have a friggin' job? This dude is the most insubordinate jackass. He is openly racist and hostile towards Spock, the second in command of his vessel, a number of times, all but calls Kirk a coward at one point. Screw the motion of court-martial. How is this guy not seeing the wrong side of an airlock by the end of this episode? You gotta be kidding me. But really, that's all I got on this one. Well, hold on, let me take that back, because I'd never hear the end of it from my cousin Possum Science if I didn't at least mention that that comet shouldn't have had a tail on it. We didn't see no star around that would have given it a tail, so where'd the tail come from? And the sequence where everybody's whispering, that's a little silly too. Since there's thousands, if not millions of miles of vacuum between the two ships, you could have had a chainsaw juggler and a mariachi band on the bridge, and the Romulans wouldn't have been any the wiser. But we all know that. It's there to parallel the whole submarine battle thing, so I'll give it a pass. At least accidentally turning on some system was something plausible to give away the Enterprise's position, and not something like Sulu sneezing or something, right? Ruminations. If I could interview George Takei, this is the episode I'd ask him about. Styles and his attitude towards Spock after finding out what the Romulans look like parallels the same attitude that was behind the internment camps set up during World War II, where more than 125,000 Japanese Americans, including George Takei, were imprisoned. They were put in there for no other reason than they looked like our enemy. In fact, Colonel Carl Benditson, the scumbag remembered as the architect of the Japanese-American internment program, said he wanted anyone with even, quote, one drop of Japanese blood to be imprisoned. It's that same unhinged bigotry that drives Lieutenant Styles to be so hostile towards Spock during this whole ordeal. And it's only when Spock saves his life, personally proves himself to Styles, that Styles comes around and realizes he was wrong about Spock. But it makes you wonder if, in Styles' head, that only clears Spock and not other Vulcans. I mean, we get the notion that we're learning about the folly of bigotry, and that's a good thing. But there's nothing that says Styles ain't still a bigot toward any Vulcan what didn't happen to save his life. But maybe that's part of the message too, right? Anyways, I'd love to talk with old George about all of this and see what he was thinking about at the time. Interesting stuff. So, it's well known that this episode borrowed heavily from the movie The Enemy Below, starring Robert Meacham and Star Trek and Babylon 5 alum Theodore Bickel. Basically, American destroyer versus German U-boat. And it works surprisingly well in this scenario thanks to episode writer Paul Schneider's invention of the cloaking device. I mean, when you think about it, that's two things that would end up becoming major things in all of Star Trek, the Romulans and the cloaking device. That this one guy that only wrote 2 episodes of the original series and 1 episode of the animated series came up with. Talk about getting your money's worth. But while the episode is a great example of the sneaking, stalking, and strategizing, the tension and excitement of a submarine battle, it really shines because of the humanity that comes through in the various scenes we've already talked about, especially with the Romulans. It's really pretty avant-garde for a show like this to portray a nuanced and humanized, if you'll pardon the expression, villain. And it kind of works hand in hand with the other message too, that even your enemy is a real person with a family and friends with hopes and fears and who wants to go home. In war, you still gotta fight them, but you don't gotta hate them because in the end, they're still people. Now that's what I call a Star Trek message. So there you have it. Balance of Terror. What did you guys think about this episode? How awesome was Mark Lenard, huh? Is there any of you who don't care for this episode? No judgment from your possum here, but I would love to hear about what it is you don't like about it down there in the comments. And if you love the episode like I do, let me know about your favorite part down there. If you're liking these episode reviews, reach down there and like that thumbs up button. Really helps the channel out. And if you ain't a subscriber, that button's down there too. You'll want to hit that because you don't want to miss being a part of all of the excitement of watching stuff with me, Possum Rob. And if you need some possum-related fashion and or accessories, head on over to adstudiosmerch.com and grab something for yourself or maybe a gift for your mother. Let her know you care. Make it Mother's Day all year long with a Watching Stuff coffee mug. She'll love it. Next episode, the return of the Shatner split screen as we ask ourselves the question, what are little girls made of? Until then, possum friends are awesome friends. Take it easy, all right? Later.